Hi, welcome. It's great to have you here. Today I'm going to be doing a tier list video of INTJ abilities. This is definitely going to go way beyond the stereotypes because I am myself an INTJ, so hopefully I should have some good insight. And yeah, let's get right into it because let's not waste time. So life plans is going to be a beta because actually INTJs do have a really good ability to kind of plot the course of their life to an extent, probably more so than any other type. This is especially true when you're looking in terms of careers and things that you actually want to achieve. And INTJ may very well have a list of things that they want to get done, and they'll be working towards that. And this is really cool because it means everything they do can kind of make progress towards that final goal that they're trying to achieve. And yeah, it's kind of the issue with it though is without any sort of other abilities combined with it, it's kind of a bit pointless because INTJs sometimes get so caught up in the planning stage of it that they don't actually try and achieve these things in real life, basically. So that's why it's there. Superiority complex is a C tier because it can be helpful to give INTJs confidence, but often this confidence will lead them to basically ignore possible opportunities for learning and wisdom from other people because they'll think they know everything. And I've noticed this a lot, especially in younger INTJs, especially even when I was younger. Just sort of other perspectives, you think that people aren't smart enough, so you kind of ignore that opinion, but actually realizing that you can learn so much from so many different kinds of people is just super helpful, and unfortunately this ability can get in the way of that. So it can be helpful for confidence, but there's a lot of drawbacks with it. Okay, reluctant leader is going to be A tier. It's a super useful skill. I might have a video link to it somewhere in this video. But yeah, basically INTJs, we aren't like ENTJs. We don't want to go straight for the leadership in every situation, but if we have the need for it, if the group we're in needs someone to step up, we've done the analysis on everyone and we have a plan, with a life plan, we have a plan, we can make it work. So we are actually very good at leadership when we need to. It's just not something that we're naturally drawn to stepping into immediately. But yeah, it's a super useful skill. We're very balanced with our leadership generally, and yeah, it's just a great INTJ skill to have. Next is loyalty. This has got to be S tier. It's so underrated for INTJs, but we are such with our introverted feeling child function. Basically, we just feel emotions very deeply, and that means we can very much just focus on sticking to one thing and not betraying our own ideals, and it's just an incredible trait. And I think a lot of INTJs, when you ask them what is their strongest sort of strength, they'll maybe go to their intellect or their planning ability, but actually this is potentially one of the best things about INTJs. So yeah. Cold logic, unfortunately this is D tier. It's kind of what a lot of immature INTJs use a lot of time. They will just ignore the emotional side of things, which is not very healthy to do. And I think once INTJs can sort of learn to incorporate emotions into solving the problems, it becomes a lot more helpful and useful because then they actually understand it's part of the equation. It's something that needs to be considered if you want to be balanced as well. If you look into cognitive functions, you realize you want some degree of balance between all the functions. So if you're just using extroverted thinking too much, it's not going to have the balance of introverted feeling. So yeah, using cold logic, there are certain situations where you do need someone to be rational, you need someone to be logical, and to be able to sort of take a step back. But generally, this is going to get overused in immature INTJs, which is why it is a D tier. So in small amounts can be helpful, but chances are if you're an INTJ, you're probably using this way too much. So yeah. Emotional containment is going to be a C tier. It's kind of very similar to the cold logic thing, but this is more to do with being able to have emotions but not express them. And unlike cold logic, this is you can have situations where potentially it can be useful if you're, for example, playing poker or some kind of deception. You can have emotions, but you just sort of don't reveal it on your face. And yeah, this is definitely helpful in a variety of scenarios, but the issue is we are so good at using this that sometimes we don't decontain the emotions, so it just kind of gets caught up, and that's not very healthy in the long run. Yeah, so it can be useful to have emotional containment, but you're going to generally overuse it as an INTJ until you learn to like open up about emotions and kind of trust other people, I guess, with your emotions. So yeah, it's CETA probably getting overused, but it's kind of more useful than just straight up quad logic. Death Star. This is going to be a beta. It's kind of a step up. Like these are kind of steps up from each other, because Death Star, unlike emotional containment, this is actually almost it's like sharp emotion at times potentially. Sometimes Death Star is just from us just looking at people and going off into some NI tangent in our head, but a lot of the time it can also be to do with if we're like very annoyed and we're like staring at someone and just that direct NI focus, I guess. Yeah, it can be quite intense, and it's kind of almost sometimes the opposite of emotional containment. So it's like can counteract this if we're just letting out sort of, I don't know, just the intensity in our Death Star, I guess. It can be, it's can be really good for like intense eye contact, I guess, and like, I don't know, just like connection with other people, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, okay, so contingency plans is ATA. Unlike life plans, which realistically, if you're an INTJ, you make a life plan. Unfortunately, yes, it will probably be an average for the average types planned, but there is going to mess up at times. Where we really shine is our contingency plans. We know things are going to work out, or aren't going to work out in our plans, so we actually have backup plans to deal with that. And I guess at times, potentially, an INTJ, especially if they're very stressed out, might make way too many contingency plans, and it's not necessarily useful to do too much. But just the ability to adapt to situations by being able to like predict that things aren't going to work out and then have solutions set already is helpful. We can also have this like incredibly neat ability to basically take a plan that we've made, contingency plan, and in real time apply it to another plan. So INTJs were either the most prepared or least prepared people you can think of, because either we have a plan for it, or we don't, and potentially we can get a plan for it out of our contingency plan. So if, for example, I don't know, I'm thinking like an apocalypse scenario, an INTJ might not have a specific solution to that specific scenario, but maybe they could adapt another one that's kind of similar enough and have a good approach, like a survival strategy, for example. Okay, now on to the next one, simplification. This is going to be an ATA also, because we have an incredible ability with our introverted intuition to basically take a thing and break it down into its most simple form. With learning and stuff, it's so helpful to be able to get topics and condense it into its like most raw abstract concepts. And INTJs, we are known for being smart, but actually a lot of it comes through with simplification. So we aren't actually intellectually that great at like the logical side of things, like you would have with an INTP, for example. But we're really good at simplifying it down into its base concepts. And this can be useful for trying to explain as well, because we are able to just get the most raw abstract form of the concept and understand it. So yeah, it can also be useful for, it's kind of like, if you think of contingency plans, we can simplify what is actually this, as an example, what is this plan actually doing, what purpose it's serving, and we can basically just abstract it down into its most raw form and sort of rebuild it from that. So it's just super useful skill for INTJs to have. And yeah, next is solitude, and I'm going to have to put this in detail. It's a pretty neat trick, sort of skill to have on occasion, but it's so overused by INTJs. Just because we can go for like months without talking to anyone doesn't mean we should, and there's so much useful things we can gain from interacting with other people. I guess it can be useful for certain situations where, like, I don't know, maybe if you have to go somewhere and you're not seeing anyone, you can deal with that. You don't have to immediately talk to everyone all the time. But at the same time, yeah, it's kind of, we do overuse this too much. and yeah, I don't know, it can kind of get lonely for an INTJ. Like over time, the solitude is not great. Yeah, it's kind of similar with called logic. It's certain situations can be useful, but it's quite a niche sort of when it's actually need to be used, and the INTJ will just use it most of the time. Lacking social etiquette. Yeah, so this is going to be a beta. It's an interesting one because INTJs, we don't really care about fitting in. We don't really care about what other people feel about us. We do care about what other people think about us in terms of like hierarchies and where we're on some kind of structure of like intellectual sort of, how useful are we. But we don't really care about the sort of social etiquette behind it at all. So, is fitting with social conventions, that kind of thing, is not something that really bothers us. And this has a lot of pros and cons to it, basically, because it does mean that we can be kind of trendsetters in a sense, because we're acting differently. We don't really care like about what other people think, so we can just sort of genuinely just sort of go our own way. Kind of linking to solitude, I guess, in the sort of we're on our own, but the difference between solitude and lacking etiquette is we're still in the situations where we're interacting with other people, and that's the crucial bit. We're still interacting with people, we're just not interacting with people in the same way everyone else is, so we're acting differently. And yeah, this just allows us to do what we want to do and sort of not conform to social norms, I guess, and we can kind of act our own way. And this can be respected by some people because we're not just following everyone else. Sort of also linked to the leadership side of things, we can use this sort of lacking etiquette to do leadership, although the important thing if you're able to do the leadership skill is you do need to have some form of etiquette dealing with, just so you can fit in with other people to an extent. But generally, it can kind of go either way in terms of, is it a good thing to have, is it a bad thing to have, depending on how it's used by the INTJ. And lastly, motivation. This is just an incredible skill for an INTJ to have, because most of these sort of things can just basically be powered through by pure motivation. An INTJ, when they're actually motivated, can just do incredible things. What you might notice with INTJs is they'll spend most of their time kind of seeming quite unmotivated, but then sort of at the last minute they'll just just grind through everything and get it all done. And yeah, it's very, very, very useful for an INTJ. This is like probably the greatest skill, but I've got obviously joined with loyalty, but just their ability to just work on things, because we have our goals, because we have like our motivation and intent of this is where we're going, it's very clear to us what we're doing, why we're doing it, we can just go for it. And yeah, this just allows us to achieve so much, so many, just a variety of tasks. It's not, unlike some of the skills, it's not very specific to certain things. You can just apply it to just a variety of skills. So I guess because we're trying to like self-improve a lot of the time, we can actually take our motivation and just put it into developing other skills and working on our weaknesses, I guess, just because of our motivation that we're trying to achieve it all. So yeah, this is kind of why it's such a useful skill, just because it affects so many other skills, basically, just because we can treat skills as a thing to work on and then just use our motivation to pass through it and improve. Cool. Yeah, thanks for watching. This has been a cool video to make because, yeah, it's about my type. Hopefully I've gone beneath the sort of surface level robot stereotypes, I guess, and like actually have given an interesting analysis, maybe. Yeah, let me know if you want any more videos, suggestions, whatever, and subscribe if you wanna. Don't feel you have to, but it would be cool. I'd appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for sticking with me this long, and yeah, goodbye.